Like me, you may be watching a lot more television these days than you normally do. A lot of the shows that we're watching have what they call a recap or an intro at the beginning of every episode. It plays for a few seconds and it reminds you what took place in the episode or episodes just before this one. The other night, we were watching the next episode of a show that we had watched maybe just 2 nights ago. The recap played, the intro played, and both Kendra and I said at the same time, "Oh yeah, I forgot that happened in the last episode." There's so much that happens even in a television show that sometimes we miss it the first time around, and we could actually use a little recap to catch up on it. There's so much that happens even in a typical day in our lives that we're apt to miss it. There's this really beautiful moment in the story of Esther in the Old Testament where so much has been happening and Esther has missed a lot of it. And so Mordecai, her adopted father, comes along in the middle of the book in chapter 4, and he says, "Esther, let me do a little recap of your life to this point because God has been so active in it. And I think that you've missed it." There's a spiritual practice called the Examen, which is designed to help us have a recap, an intro to what happened yesterday so that we don't miss what God was up to during the day. It's an easy spiritual practice that you can do at the end of a day or at the beginning of a new day. And it really just has 3 steps. Let me briefly lead you through them. You might take as much time as you'd like in each of these steps. The first step is review. So in your mind, go back to the beginning of the day and review the entire day. Let it play forward like a video in your mind. And as you review the day, you're looking for several things. One of those is simply, how did God show up yesterday? And maybe I missed it because I was distracted, or I was busy, or I was anxious. But how did God show up? As you review the day, look for ways in which God showed up in acts of kindness and mercy and compassion. How did God show up? Review the day. Second, respond. Respond to God based on what you've reviewed in that day. As you mark those moments during the day when God showed up, respond to Him and thank Him for showing up in those ways, for being involved and engaged in your life and your world in those ways. Respond. And third, resolve. Resolve to live in a different way tomorrow because of what you reviewed about this past day. Let that review and that response now shape the way that you live into tomorrow. Let me urge you to practice the Examen as a way of catching up on all the good things that God has been up to in your life. May God bless you, my friends.